Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess and in today's tutorial we are going to be making a Sentro headband. These are really great for the winter time and they're really easy to work up and I can't wait to share it with you. So let's jump in. So for today's tutorial I'm going to be using these two types of yarn. I'm going to be using this Bernat Super Value. I find that this yarn is like the perfect thickness. Sometimes I feel like the Karen Simply Soft it's really soft, but I feel like the stitches with the Sentro machine just aren't as defined. Where with this like thicker yarn, I find that it is a little bit more defined. So I'm going to be using this and I'm going to be making a two-toned headband. So I thought I would use this like white speckled like beigey yarn from Red Heart. We're also going to be needing some waste yarn. So this can be any type of yarn that you don't really care about because we're going to cut it up and it's going to be just disposed of. It's not going to be part of the final project. So the color of the yarn does not matter in this scenario, but you will need some waste yarn. We're also going to need a crochet hook. I just have my 4.5mm crochet hook from Crochet Society, or sorry, from Furls. And I'm gonna need some scissors, a darning needle, and my Sentro 40 pin machine. You can make this with a 46 pin, but it will be quite a lot thicker. So just keep that in mind. I will be using my 40 pin today. So once we have gathered all of our supplies, we can get started. All right, so I have my knitting machine all set up here. Now, before we get started, I'll just kind of go through what is on the machine here. So first we have all of our pins are white, if you can see that, except for this one right here, which is black. Now the black pin is where we start and stop all of our rounds. So we're always going to start with the black. And this is also going to be how we count. So something that I like to do that I learned is I like to mark my black pin right before my black pin with black Sharpie. That way when I'm knitting, every time this black mark comes around again, I know that it's one round. So it's easier for me to count because sometimes you can miss the black pin when you're going decently quick. So that's kind of what I do to set up my machine. In the front here, we just have our tension, and this is our feeder here that we put our yarn into, and our tension. On here, we have our two options. So we have the T, which is tube, and the P, which is for panel. So we're going to be working in the tube because we're going to be working in the round here. And then over here, we just have our whatever this is called, handle to make the pins move. So that is our machine all set up. All right, so to begin our project, we are going to be starting off with our waste yarn. So this yarn is not going to be a part of the final project. This is basically just so that we can get our seams together at the end, which I will explain in further detail once we get to that step. So don't worry if you don't understand just yet. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our waste yarn and we're going to start off with our first cast on. So how we cast on is I'm going to take my waste yarn here with the tail inside and I'm going to wrap it around the black pin like we talked about. Next, I'm going to do my long tail cast on here. So what we do is we are in front of the black pin currently. What we're going to do is we're going to go around each pin. We're going to go around the back of the next pin and the front of the next pin, all the way around. So we're in front now. So we're going to go behind and then in front, behind, in front, behind, in front, behind, all the way around, in front, behind, And just take your time with this. You want to make sure that you're alternating or else your stitches are not going to work. So just take your time, behind and front, behind and front. And your last one, your last white pin prior to the black pin should be behind because we started in front in the black. So if you're not behind for this one, you know you've done something wrong. So we're going to be behind here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to stick our yarn into our feeder here, right here. And then we're going to pull it down into our tension. Now, I personally like to have a little bit tighter tension, so I'm going to put mine in the first one closest to the machine, which is the smallest one for me. Now, if you're using a different machine other than the Sentro, just do whatever tension you want to for this project, but that's what I like to do for me. So that is our long tail cast on, and now we're going to start. We're going to do 8 rounds with this waste yarn. So we're going to start off with round 1, and again, we're always going to be counting from our black pin here. So I'm just going to go around, and you can go decently slow with the first one here, making sure all the stitches are catching. So there we've done 1 round because we're back at our black pin again. So we're going to do 8 rounds. So this is round 2, 3, here we go, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this will be our 8th. So we're going to stop right before we reach our black pin, which is right here. Now sometimes I just like to pull my tail here just to tighten that, but it's not really necessary. Next, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut that waste yarn end. I'm going to take it out of my tension and out of the feeder here, and I'm going to place it inside, and it's still wrapped around the very last white pin before the black pin. I'm just going to set it there. All right, so once we're at this point where we are done with our waste yarn, we're going to grab our next color, which is going to be the first actual color of our project, and for me it's going to be this green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast on my new color here onto the black pin, and I'm going to leave a tail on the inside, and I'm going to put it into my feeder here and into the tension here, same way as I did with the other. Now I'm just going to hold this as I go a little bit just to make sure that that yarn is going to grab, and I'm going to start to do the first round of the green. So there's the first round done of the green. Now for the green here, we're going to do a total of 45 rounds. So you're going to count 45, starting from our black pin like normal. So this is going to be round 2 for me. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now really quickly before I keep going, I'm going to just pull these 2 yarn tails slightly together, and I'm just going to tie one small thing here, not a knot, just the one before a knot, because we want that to stay together, but we don't want to knot it together. So we are on 8. So So I'm just going to go up to 45 and I'll meet you back here at the end of that. All right, so we have just completed 45 rounds of the green, and now I'm going to change colors. Now, you don't have to change colors in this project. You can just make it all one color. I think that that looks really good, and I've made tons that way, but I also love the color changed ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut my yarn. I'm going to cut a decent tail here. And again, I'm going to take it out of my tension, out of the feeder and into the center, wrapped around that white pin again, right before the black pin. Next, I'm going to grab my next color, which is going to be this white, like flaky color. And I'm going to add that to my feeder here. So I'm going to, again, leave the strand in the center. And I'm going to wrap around my black pin like that. I'm going to put it in my feeder here and into my tension. I'm just going to make sure that that grabs in that first few stitches there. So there's one round completed. So again, with this yarn, I'm going to do 45 rounds, same as I did with the green. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, before I move on, I'm just gonna again grab these tails from my color change. And with this one, because these are the final colors, I'm gonna lightly pull those together, and I'm gonna tie a couple knots because this is going to stay where it is. And I'm just going to cut those tails so they're not so long. This will just be on the inside of our project, so we're not going to see that. So I'm just going to go along and I'm going to do 45 rounds total, and then we can meet back here for the next step. I also want to mention, when you're at the point where your work is about to touch the table or whatever surface you're working on, you don't want that to happen because it can affect your stitches up top. So what I tend to do is I'll just grab that and I'll just roll it up so that it's sitting in this area here and not touching. And then as I continue to go around, I will just continue rolling it and rolling it and rolling it until I'm done my project. So I'm just going to keep going and I will meet you back here. All right, so once we are at this point, we have 45 rounds of the green, 45 rounds of the white for a total round count of 90. And we have just one more set of waste yarn to complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut my end here of my white yarn, and I'm going to place it in the center again like I always do. And then I'm going to grab my waste yarn again, which is that blue yarn that I used to start the project with. I'm going to put that in the center, wrap it around my black pin here, and into the feeder, and into the tension. And I'm just going to hold those while they grab into those stitches there. All right, so there's one round. So we're going to do a total of 8 rounds of this waste yarn. Four, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, with these ends, I'm just going to tie a little, not a knot, but just to keep those together. And then I'm going to cut my yarn for my waist yarn. I'm going to put that in the center like this. Now next, to get off the machine here, all we're going to do is I'm just going to go around until the stitches fall off. Now because the blue is our waist yarn, if we lose a few stitches, that's kind of the point of it. So it's okay to cast off like this. So I'm just going to go around with nothing in the feeder. And then this time around, the stitches are going to let go, just like this. And I'm just going to put that to the side. And this is what we have. All right, so once we're at this point, I've just put my machine to the side because we are done with it. And I'm just going to unroll my work here. Now there's a good side and a bad side. So this is what I'm looking like. I have my 2 colors and I have my waist yarn on either side. So the first thing we want to do is we just want to stretch it out, and that's going to give those stitches the definition. So you can see how beautiful that is. Those stitches are just perfect. I know this is kind of cheat knitting, but the result is just so beautiful, it's hard not to do it. So once I've stretched out my stitches, what we're going to do is we're going to be seaming closed the edges before we sew it together into the headband that it's going to be. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we need to find the edge of our project on one side here. We'll start with the white side where our little knot was. This is where we did our color change. Now we're going to need a couple stitch markers for this part of the project. Now if you look closely at this, what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to see a white loop and then underneath a blue, and a white, blue, all the way around. So what we're going to do with our stitch marker is closest to our tie off, we're going to kind of just like save or safety pin the white strand closest to that section, which is right here. And I'm just going to place my stitch marker there. This is just going to hold this so it doesn't come out. And we're going to do the exact same to the other side here. I'm just going to place my little stitch marker so I have the 2 secured there at the very end. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half so that that area that we just completed is on the edge. Now, this whole round is 40 stitches, and we want to find stitch 20 and 21. So basically halfway through, 10 or 20 on one side, 20 on the other side. And we're going to be needing our crochet hook for this step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the white stitches, starting with this pink one that I saved already. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So these 2 stitches right at the end are the ones that we're going to be working into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into stitch 21 with my crochet hook, if you can see that. Next, I'm going to go into stitch 20, underneath stitch 20, and I'm just going to yarn that loop over and pull it through stitch 21. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch and I'm going to yarn over and pull through, And then on the other side, the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. I'm going to just keep going all the way along on either side, so alternating one side, then the next, only grabbing that top white loop and pulling it through. Then onto the other side here, pull that through. And you really have to take your time with this, because if you miss a stitch, your project will come out. So just take your time. This is kind of the most tedious part of this project, but it really does make a beautiful seam. So I find that it's worth it. And you can see here, it's almost creating like a braided effect on that inside seam there. So I'm just going to keep going along all the way across. And this is also why when you're choosing your waste yarn, you want to make sure you're choosing a yarn that is completely different color than your base colors, or else you won't be able to see the difference in your stitches, the different coloring. Where this one, it's obvious because it's white and blue, so you can really see the colors. So I'm just going along, yarning over and pulling through, making sure to not skip any stitches. Okay, so now we are at the spot for our stitch markers, and personally I find this is why we do the stitch markers, because they would be lost at this point, I think. So first I'm just going to untie that little knot that I made with those two colors. Now I'm just going to go underneath this purple one, and I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to pull that through, and then I'm going to go underneath the pink one, take that off, pull that through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white yarn tail here, and I'm just going to yarn over and pull that through. So this is what we're looking like so far. We just have this one seam. Now we still have all this blue yarn attached, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the blue yarn here out. Super satisfying. And there is our seam completed. So you'll be able to tell at this point if you miss any stitches, because it will come out. So I just tightened my knot there at the end to secure that. And this is what the seam looks like. It's so beautiful. It's very clean, and it does have some stretch to it. So it's not like tight, which I love. So there is one side completed. This is what the other side looks like. So we're going to move on to the other side here. Now I've already grabbed my stitches with my stitch marker on this side. So I'm just going to go ahead and count back, sew my seam together, and then we'll meet back here. Okay, so I have seamed together my green now, and I just want to show you. So this waste yarn was attached first, so we did the long tail cast on, so it's not going to be as easy to remove as this one was. You're not just going to be able to pull it right away, because it's just going to actually close up, not loosen. So what we need to do is we need to pull out that long tail cast on that we did at the very beginning. So if you can see, here's our tail, and I don't know if you can see, but there's like a tether here if I pull, my tail's going to pull through. This is the long tail cast on that we did. So what we have to do is we have to go around and pull that out before we'll be able to easily pull this out. So it's just this very top row right here. And it will pull very easily. You'll know if you're in the right spot. And then just going to pull that through. We have to do it all the way around. And then once we've undone that top one, then we can just pull it out like the other side. But you have to release that long tail cast on first on the one side, whatever side you started with. So that one's a little bit more difficult, but we will just take this out. That. And there is our seam for the green. So those are our two seams all done. All right, so this is where we are right now, and now we are ready to assemble our headband. So basically, to create the twist in this headband, it's very, very simple. It looks more difficult than it is, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to take one end of our headband and we're going to fold it in half like this. Then we're going to take the other side and we're going to fold it in half. And what we're going to do is we're going to interlock them together like this. So you should have green, white, green, white. And you just want to make sure that they're even. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one of my tails here on my darning needle. And all we're going to do here is sew these edges together. And you just want them to be as even with each other as you can get them. And all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go in and I just want to make sure that I'm grabbing that center one. You want to make sure you're going through all 4 sections of like all 4 layers here, if you will. So I'm just going to go back and forth. And then I'm just going to tie a knot here. Now I also have this green yarn tail. I'm just going to feed that up to the same spot. And I'm just going to tie a few knots here just to secure that. Just like that. And then all I'm going to do is weave in these ends. So I'm just going to weave them between the layers of my headband here. Just pull that apart ever so slightly. And then just cut that. And then we'll do the same with the green. And then all we do is we just flip it inside out. And there you have that twist in your headband, and you have the perfect two-toned headband completed. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. I love making these. They're such great gifts for people, and they are also really great for yourself. They're really warm and I love them. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought. We hope you guys have a lovely day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!